welcome to our welcome to our Crows Before YouTube. Nope. Hey friends, welcome to our Crows Before Bros YouTube channel. My name is Lauren if we haven't met yet, and usually I do buddy reads on this channel with my good friend Randy. We are starting to flesh out our channel a little bit more with more content. Randy and I read a lot of the same stuff, but we also have some different interests too. She also reads like way faster than I do. So there's lots of things that are kind of classics that she's read that I haven't gotten to yet. So we're doing some solo videos. This one is my first solo video, so if you're here, thank you so much. Check out Randy's first solo video. I'm actually fortunate that I'm filming this after seeing hers. I was so excited. She exceeded my expectations by leaps and bounds. She is so effortlessly funny. She would not agree with me, but she's wrong. She's also just like so articulate and has great thoughts on the books that she talks about. So please go watch her video as well. She spoke about ACOTAR. She read it for the first time after putting it off for many months, probably years actually. So if you're an ACOTAR fan or if you're thinking about reading ACOTAR, she has lots of really good thoughts on that. And lots of spoiler-free thoughts too, which I thought was really cool. If you're late to this book, I don't know what to tell you. Before we get started, I think normally I'm gonna do a little bit of a check-in for what I've been reading on my solo videos too, but to be honest, this month has been so busy for me that the book that we're gonna talk about today is the only book I've read since our spooky video. I don't think I could ever keep up with Randy's insane pace. I think she's a witch, so... Speaking of witchy, immortal, supernatural beings, the book that we're going to talk about today is a YA kind of supernatural romance. It's a romance between a really plain, just average girl and a big, sexy, immortal man. He likes to control her. He's literally sparkling. He's young looking. They fall in love despite their differences because she realizes that he's not really a monster under it all. Today, I'm not talking about ACOTAR. I am talking about Twilight, baby! Let's talk about Twilight. I am excited. I'm late by 17 years. This book clocks in at 498 pages. One thing that I thought was so funny when I was opening up this book is that on that 50th page was a Cosmopolitan subscription card as a bookmark from the year 2005. There's also a sticker on it that says soon to be a major motion picture, which normally, listen, stickers on books should be a federal offense, but I think this is so funny that I'm gonna keep it. So I'm gonna brief you on the synopsis, but first let's set the scene. We're gonna go back in time to 2005. I want you to imagine with me that it's a rainy November morning. The leaves are crunchy. Your skinny jeans fit just right. You've got cozy Ugg boots on. You're listening to the Black Eyed Peas on your iPod Nano. You're excited about the weekend. You're gonna go to the movie theater and watch Goblet of Fire with your friends. Say hi to the dragon on the ceiling. May he rest in peace. Your copy of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer is bouncing around in your book bag. Life is good. Life is easy. You have no problems. Hakuna Matata, baby. If you're like young me, you're gonna take this book. You're gonna be thrilled to read it, aching to read it. You're gonna read the first 50 pages of it, and then you're gonna put it on your shelf and forget about it for 17 years. So today, let's jump into Twilight in the year 2022. If you want to live your teenage vampire fantasy, your tweeny bopper vampire fantasy. So Twilight follows Bella Swan as she moves to Forks, Washington, which is a small kind of rainy town from her previous home in Phoenix, Arizona. She's more or less moving to give her mom and father-in-law space to kind of like be midlife crisis-y. He, I think, is pursuing a baseball career. I feel like that's not important. She moves to Forks. She moves in with her real dad, who honestly, I don't know how he hasn't starved to death. He's a codependent mess. He seems to be a lot of people's favorite character, but honestly, Bella cooks every meal they eat. I don't know how he survived until she got there. So Bella goes to a new high school and she immediately is pretty much welcomed into a new friend group, into the fold. I really didn't see her friends as being like that integral to the story other than for her to just neglect them. Despite having this like nice new warm friend group, her tunnel vision is on this Cullen family, which is like this very ethereal, cold, pale, weird family of people, some of which look like too old to be in high school, honestly. She's so enamored with Edward right away. Edward then spends many chapters avoiding her. Eventually their romance is inevitable. We also meet Jacob, who is like a close family friend whose family has been warning Bella basically the entire book that the Cullens are bad news and that she should stay away from them. That's another character that's kind of important. Eventually, I think we see a little bit of a love triangle between Edward and Bella and Jacob, but there's not much of that yet in the first book, so I guess I'll have to read the next one. We eventually meet like a rival group of vampires, I guess a coven. They sort of threaten Bella's safety. There's some big decisions that need to be made. There's some thunder baseball in the middle. All in all, I feel like this book is really like an establishment book, so maybe I do need to dip into the next few just to really get more plot. Okay, so listen, I was a teenager once. Shocking. And I remember that everything did feel like a huge deal when it was happening. But even kind of looking at this book through the lens of like how melodramatic teenagers are, this was like next level melodrama for me. Right out the gate, Bella is so woe is me. She comes into the school with this attitude of like, nobody's gonna like me. I'm not gonna fit in here. I'm so different. I'm so pale. She is pretty welcomed to the school right away. She makes friends within the first couple of weeks at school. That would not have happened to me. Pretty much every guy in school is after her, even though she's like very plain. I was actually warned ahead of schedule that Bella Swan is kind of like the archetype for I'm not like other girls. There's nobody like me. I'm pale. I like video games. But I don't know that I quite mentally prepared even enough for that. The whole book, she's so self-deprecating. She's like in disbelief that Edward would even want anything to do with her, let alone anybody else in the school. So let's talk about Edward quickly. He is the leading man. Holy, Edward has some pretty yucky qualities right out the gate. Their first kind of experience, or one of their first experiences together, is in chemistry, biology, science. One of their first encounters is in a science class together, and they're looking through microscopes. Bella has come from a advanced placement science class. She knows what she's doing. Edward double checks every single slide that she does. He's like, I would like to see it for myself. That person would have annoyed me so much in my science class. I definitely would not have been attracted to him. For sure. Also, there's this scene where Bella is in the parking lot and it's like the first day that it snowed and there's a truck barreling towards her, and even though Edward is sitting across the parking lot, he like swoops in, he's super fast, and he stops the truck from hitting her. And then shortly after, he's like, you imagine that I was right next to you. I don't know what you're thinking. One other not cute thing that Edward is doing pretty much throughout the book is climbing into Bella's window at night and watching her sleep. I'm not that familiar with vampire lore, okay, but I thought that vampires couldn't come into your home unless you invited them in. I feel like that would make for a much shorter story.
Hello, may I come inside?
No, definitely not. Okay, so hear me out though. Despite him being like kind of a creep, I did kind of want the book to be a bit smuttier, and I know it's a YA novel, so like obviously that's not kosher, but I could definitely see why 50 Shades of Grey is inspired by Twilight. There were so many moments where there's like stolen glances or they kind of brush up against each other. I don't know what this is. I was yearning. I wanted like a little bit more. It was a bit milk for me. I feel like there were lots of kind of eye roll moments, places where I was like, oh, cringe, this is brutal. And I know it's geared to be like a teenage angst kind of vibe, but I wasn't sold on that. Some of these eye roll moments literally made me laugh out loud. I will read a quote to you that I thought was so funny. It's probably the most popular quote in the whole entire book. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. Y'all, That's absurd. I have read this quote out of context, and it's actually worse when you put it into the book where it is. At this point in time, they've had like one conversation. Could you imagine being unconditionally and irrevocably in love with someone after one conversation with them? Your grande caramel macchiato? Extra foam. Oh, thank you. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Starbucks barista was a barista. Second, there was a part of her, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that gave me extra foam. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with her. Honestly, there were a lot of moments like this that just made me roll my eyes or laugh out loud. But I think my opinion on this book is like maybe giving it a little more grace than it might deserve. I didn't hate it. There were lots of parts of the book that were really gripping. There were some parts that were a slog. I feel like my opinion is pretty tepid here. For the time, there was a lot of hate for this book, and I don't know that it deserved it. This is my 43rd book of the year. Just this year, I could think of like 3, 4, 5 books off the top of my head that were worse. I think. That's one girl's opinion, but I honestly did not hate it. I think my biggest complaint about this book is just how serious it took itself. Trying to look at it through that lens of like, yeah, everything does feel really serious in high school. And I guess like dating a vampire is pretty dangerous. That is a pretty big deal. I still feel like it was so dramatic throughout the entirety of the book. I'm not going to speak to too much more of the plot stuff, just in case you do want to give it a reread or whatever else. So rating wise, I give this 3 stars. I'm normally the type of person that gives something a star rating, and then a couple weeks removed from the book, I change my mind. I still think I would give this 3 stars. It's definitely not the worst book that I've read this year. I wouldn't even say even close. There still are lots of points of interest in this book. While it definitely had me rolling my eyes, I still enjoyed it. Okay, so up next on my TBR, I have School for Good and Evil. And then also I want to read Love on the Brain. And I'm always aching this time of year to read cozy Christmas books. So if you have any recommendations for that, I would love to hear them. In terms of all of the fancy YouTube stuff, do subscribe to us if you haven't already. We are so excited when we see new subscribers or new views even. We just love doing it. It's honestly so fun. Also hit that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when we drop new videos. We're trying to do 3 times a month. So one buddy read and then solo video. So yeah, we are so happy that you're here. Please tell me about your Twilight thoughts below, and also hit me up with those cozy Christmas reads as we kind of like head into December here. It was so good chatting with you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week.